Hey there, you are watching New Vision TV News. I am Ruthi Nasija. Now, after weeks of protests, the people of Sudan have won, forcing President El Bashir out of office. Week after week, days after days, protests grew bigger. What started as a demonstration against bread and fuel prices later became a push against Bashir, who came to office 30 years ago in a military coup. Now the army has now taken over power of transition authority for the next 2 years. The airport is closed and there is heavy presence of military at all government buildings. Now by the time we went on air, the Sudanese people were out celebrating. Let us now look at the stories making news around Uganda. From Mityana, the LC5 councillor representing Bulletin sub-county has been killed in an accident involving a trailer and a motorcycle along the Mityana-Mubende highway. At the time of his death, Andrew Ndianabo was finalizing preparations for his wedding, which had been planned for next month. During the accident, the Mbende-bound trailer hit the motorcycle while he was on, killing him instantly and leaving the bike driver with several injuries and a lost arm. Grieving friends, families and local leaders gathered at Mityana Hospital after news of Ndianabo's death spread. It is understood the driver of the trailer fled the accident scene and the trailer was later towed to Mityana police station. Police investigations into the accident are going on. Moving on to Mpigi district, now a 4-month-old baby has died in a case of suspected food poisoning that has resulted in 3 other members of the same family hospitalized. Information reached Bad Lukalungu, the village secretary for defense for Tetweke zone in Buama Town Council, that a family of 4 were in critical condition. 30-year-old Noah Nambiru and her 3 children were found inside the house, lying unconscious. One of the children, Lawrence Buyambi, was already dead. Now the survivors were rushed to Nkozi Hospital for treatment. Nambiru, 12 years old, Vanessa Kisache and 2-year-old Catherine Nampima remain admitted at the facility and still unconscious. Let's go to Mayuga district. Now, as many as 243 families in Mpungwe sub-county are living in fear of being evicted by a sugar farm that is claiming ownership of the land on which they are living. Mayuga Sugar Industries Limited says the 150-acre piece of land covering the villages of Minoni, Wairama, Katusayume and Mpumo belongs to it. The matter has surfaced at a time when the Mayuge Majanje Road is being constructed. One of the families of the late Alpaksidi Wahimbi Wamlongo had applied for compensation from the Uganda National Roads Authority, only to learn that the sugar farm had also submitted an application for compensation for the same land. The said family registered its land in the names of Maleja Brothers Limited, with Francis Kataiguta as the director. Now the Maleja Brothers said they own 99 acres of the contested land. Let's go to Iganga district, where shock and disbelief greeted high-profile visitors to Iganga General Hospital after they discovered that the health facility lacked functional toilets. The group, led by the Health Ministry Permanent Secretary, Dr. Diana Twine, were bewildered to see 3 branch barricades occupy all the entries to newly constructed toilets. Twine expressed concern over the sanitation crisis, saying she would meet district leaders to find a possible way forward. Now, Dr. David Mwanguzi, the district health officer, said the toilets were set up under the 12 billion shilling first phase of the health systems strengthening project. Ramadan Mogolotha, the hospital administrator, explained that the pathetic situation, which had lasted over 3 months, was partly caused by misuse of the newly built toilets. Now, he said due to lack of the public toilets in the neighborhood, locals would use the newly created hospital toilets, causing blockage in some. Closing off the news around Uganda, we go to Chankwanzi district, where unlike most children's homes that rely on donors, St. Joseph Aid Society Children's Home in Chankwanzi district relies on its occupants for food. The children at the home grow their own food. Reverend Father Charles Mujenyi, one of the administrators at the facility, says the children started growing their own food after their sponsors from Germany withdrew support. The home has over 400 children, mainly orphans, some from the neighboring countries. Mujenyi said some of these children were dumped near their premises by relatives when they are still infants. That is it for the news around Uganda. Now let us take a look at the news around East Africa and around the globe. Hello, let's take a look at the news around East Africa. We start from Tanzania, where massive embezzlement of funds has been uncovered on Tanzania police accounts. Tanzania's Controller and Auditor General revealed that about 3.6 billion Tanzanian shillings related to the procurement of the automated fingerprint identification system was either lost or did not have supporting documents to confirm that the expenditure really took place. News from Kenya, former MP Danson Mugatana and 6 other suspects have been arrested by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over the loss of 51 million Kenya shillings by Kilifi County government. It is alleged that 7 suspects and 14 others still at large paid the ransom to private companies which did not supply goods or offer any services to Kilifi County. In South Sudan, now South Sudanese leaders are in the Vatican for a spiritual retreat on invitation by the Pope. The Vatican Secretary of State described the retreat as an opportunity for reconciliation in the spirit of respect and trust for those who, at this moment, have the special mission and responsibility to work for the development of South Sudan. Finally, news from Uganda. President Yoweri Museveni has told women groups in Kampala that the reason why money does not reach them is because they vote for people who do not have access to where the national cake is shared. The president was responding to cries from women who told him that the money government gives to their groups does not reach them. Now let's take a look at the news around the world. We start from Sudan, and now we can say former President of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, is under arrest in a safe place, and a military transitional council has been put in place, according to Sudan's defense minister and army general. Ahmed Awad ibn Awuf has declared a 3-month state of emergency and said the military council will rule for 2 years. He said airspace is closed for 24 hours, as well as all national border points. Tens of thousands of Sudanese marched early on Thursday through the center of the capital, Khartoum, in jubilation, dancing and chanting anti-Bashir slogans. Now he has been indicted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague and is facing an arrest warrant of allegations of genocide in Sudan's Darfur region during an insurgency that began in 2013 and led to death of an estimated 300,000 people. Bashir, a former paratrooper who seized power in the bloodless coup in 1989, has been a divisive figure who has managed his way through one internal crisis after another while withstanding attempts by the West to weaken him. Close by is the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a coalition of the former leader of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, scored a landslide victory of provincial gubernatorial seats. Angry supporters of newly elected President Felix Tshisekedi took to the streets protesting against this win. Now, the president and his predecessor have formed a coalition, but Kabila's supporters' massive win has put Tshisekedi on the back foot. News from the United Kingdom. European Union leaders gave Britain 6 months to leave the bloc. Prime Minister Theresa May says she needs but less than many in the bloc wanted, thanks to fierce resistance from France. The summit deal in Brussels in the early hours of Thursday meant Britain will not crash out on Friday without a treaty to smooth its passage, but it offers little clarity on when, how, or even if Brexit will happen, as May struggles to build support in Parliament for withdrawal terms agreed with the EU last year. News from South Korea. South Korea's ban on abortion has been ruled unconstitutional in a historic court decision. The country's constitutional court ordered that the law must be revised by the end of 2020. Under the 1953 ban, women have abortions can be fined and imprisoned except in cases of rape, incest, or risk to their health. Doctors who perform the procedure can also face jail. South Korea is one of the few developed countries to criminalize abortion. News from the Vatican. Former Pope Benedict has blamed the Catholic Church's sexual abuse scandal on the effects of sexual revolution of the 1960s and a general collapse in morality. The 91-year-old Benedict, who in 2013 became the first pope in 6 centuries to resign, also bemoaned in a rare essay that some Catholic seminaries had an openly gay culture and thus failed to train priests properly. Finally, from India, Indians are voting the first phase of mammoth general elections, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeking a second term. The first phase covers an electorate of 142 million voters across 20 states and federal territories who will decide the fate of 91 candidates. Almost 900 million of India's 1.3 billion people are eligible to vote. As India holds the world's biggest election, social media is awash with disinformation and fake news. That is it for the news around East Africa and around the world. Next is the Daily Pal of Africa series. We look at the home of chimpanzees, which is Ngamba Island. Now, Ngamba Island is home to Uganda's chimpanzees. Ngamba Island is located 23 kilometers southeast of Entebbe in Lake Victoria and is home to over 40 orphaned or rescued chimpanzees. Let's journey with us as we take a look at Ngamba Island. In our Daily Pal of Africa series, we look at the Ngamba Island. Now, Ngamba Island is home to Uganda's chimpanzees. Ngamba Island is located 23 kilometers southeast of Entebbe in Lake Victoria and is home to over 40 orphaned and rescued chimpanzees. Join with us as we take a look at Ngamba Island. Located 23 kilometers southeast of Entebbe in Lake Victoria is Ngamba Island. The sail on the waters of Lake Victoria kickstart off the adventure to the island of life. This place gives life and a home to orphaned and rescued chimpanzees. Established in 1998, Ngamba Island is a project of Chimpanzee Sanctuary and Wildlife Conservation Trust. Having started off with not more than 20 chimpanzees, this chimpanzee sanctuary now conserves the biggest number of these mammals in the country. Once afoot on the island, the guides take you around the place, explaining the history of the chimpanzee sanctuary. Visitors get a chance to get close to chimps and even see keepers feed them. While here, you can get the feeling of the wild. To avoid the aggressiveness at times, these rather friendly mammals are kept in cages. Ngamba Island is a sort of paradise in Lake Victoria for clearly not only the chimpanzees but even the visitors who can take advantage of the breeze looming at the lake, the cool sheds under these trees, and also have picnics with a family. My mind wants to explore. Baby girl, I said tonight is your lucky night. Not enough words that can't describe the awesome experience. Know that the sanctuary is open all year around to visitors who pay an entrance fee to view the chimpanzees. Here's a quick look at the scientific classification of a chimpanzee. The kingdom is Animalia, phylum is Chordata, class is Mammalia, Order is Primates. Suborder Haplohini. Infraorder Simiforms. Family Hominidae. Subfamily Hominia. Tribe Hominini. Genus Pan. Species P. Troglodytes. For more Pearl of Africa stories, visit our website, which is newvision.co.ug/Pearl of Africa. You can also get a copy of the Sunday Vision, where we have Pearl of Africa stories. Now, let us take a look at the special report today, where most people associate the fall of Idi Amin on 11th April 1979 with the formation of the government that replaced him. New Vision TV now brings you a story of how and why Tanzania's Mwalimu Julius Nyerere spearheaded the formation of a government in exile by Ugandan rebels before the overthrow of the government in Kampala.
Tarsis Kabwejere was professor of sociology at the University of Nairobi in the 70s. While in exile, he was involved in clandestine efforts to undermine Idi Amin. Kabwejere was actually the convener of the famous Moshi Conference that formed the post-Amin government. He recalls some of the dangerous missions they carried out.
So, we were there, you know, and the intelligence knew us, because there are things which sometimes you don't want to say, but it is years ago. But certainly, we were working internally here. We had a unit here working, and just as Yoweri Museveni had his team, we also had our connections here. And we were picking equipment from Tanzania and bringing it over here to Busia and so on, through Kenya. Very, very dangerous moments in many situations.
Explains one of the episodes.
One of the episodes was two vehicles, my own car, which was a Subaru, being driven by a Pojok. And I had a university vehicle of the Department of Sociology, and both of them had guns. And we are coming through, having stored them in Nairobi, and we now were able to get them, to bring them to Busia. Now we come through Kisumu, and as you are going up to Maseno, there is a roadblock, and the police stop us. But we also find there a vehicle with the boot open.
And you could see him?
And Akena Pojok knew the person who was there, who was called Chimumwe, one of the people. They cleared us. So you go. As we go up the hill, Akena Pojok stops. He was ahead of me. He stops and says, "By the way, that is somebody I know. He had come through Chisi with guns also in the boot." So I said, "Please, if they see us now stopping here," that's the time when I because those were handed over to Amin and he killed them. Kenya
handed them over.
Yeah.
The ones who had been stopped.
Yes. So that was the time I recall when I could have escaped from Amin here, and then I would have come to Amin to be killed.
Delivered.
Yes.
Professor Kabwejere explains why Tanzania was ready to fight Idi Amin.
When Amin took over, Nyerere said no. He would not have anything to do with Amin. And Amin took offense at that. You remember when he went to the OU and he was trying to shake his hands, you know, Nyerere's hands. So Nyerere was adamant, opposed, and now he kept Obote in his Musasani. Musasani was a state house. And Obote and Amin, of course, didn't like that. It was obvious that he supported him. And don't forget that in '72 there was an attempt to come in, which was defeated. So and obviously his intelligence must have also known that we were also working. And Fronasa was obviously known, very active. So when he attacks Tanzania, then we all now gather. We all now have an opportunity. And I've told you about the meeting, the wedding.
But while Amin was a big international problem, opportunism also led many people to Moshi.
Meanwhile, I am in touch with all these different groups. But as we got to Moshi, so many people now knew this was going on, and we all were anxious to get rid of Amin. So groups came, some were forming.
You said 84 groups?
Yes. No, 88 groups. Yes, some were forming in the compound. So we had to have a special credentials committee, which I chaired, with Rugumayo, with Omonyo Jok, with Okoti Nyoromoy, with Dr. Senabria, and we sorted out to reduce the numbers from that number to 22. Now, the issue was not that we hated some people, but there was no way we could fit in that room. The room was small, and if I'm looking for my speech that time, I used even the Chinyankore proverb that it is better to feed somebody with a running stomach than feed the ungrateful, because we took days before we could concretize, and yet we were under pressure. Tanzania was under pressure, already troops in the country, and Amin would kill anybody.
And it was days before his collapse or his defeat, because this is March.
This is March.
21st,
yeah. Yes. Yeah, so there was a lot of tension, and the international community was so hostile. Mwalimu had now broken the sovereignty of Uganda. What is this, and so on and so forth. So that explained the dynamics, the quickness, the pressures we had. And then we formed the UNLF.
The meeting in Moshi went ahead with a lot of arguments. Next episode looks at Mwalimu Nyerere's influence and interests that finally determined the composition and leadership of the government in exile.
In our next episode, we shall look at Mwalimu Nyerere's influence and interests that finally determined the composition and leadership of the government in exile. Thank you for watching. That is all we had for you. You can get more news updates and other programs here on New Vision TV by visiting our website, which is newvision.co.ug/video. You can also follow us on social media. Facebook is The New Vision, Twitter is @NewVisionWire, Instagram is @NewVisionWire, and our YouTube channel is New Vision TV. Catch up with me on my Twitter handle. I am Ruth, the Voice.